work with, whatever works here and what is best for the ward, but that breakdown of maybe a 4 and 4 might be the best idea.
And Melissa, if I could follow up on that, I am curious, because I don't live in River Terrace, so I'm not privy to what your neighbors need. So I understand you like the idea of being, connected to Kingman Park. What east of the river communities do you feel should be considered? I think you said Kenilworth. Are you talking about going up from like Mayfair to Eastland Gardens?
Section, so yeah, sorry, behind Pepco. So as I said, Justin Laney and I, we've had this conversation over and over again with quite a few ANCs over there, is trying to open up Anacostia Avenue. So we caucus with them. We both sides of Benning Road have a vested interest in the Pepco service center. We both have a very vested interest, as I like to call it, the cancer center, both neighborhoods being heavy cancer clusters and being tested over the years. So I do caucus with Mayfair and Eastland Gardens, et cetera. So.
Yeah, and Max Richmond, I'm just looking at the comments. So here's the last thing I want to say is I understand all of that. Thank you for that answers a lot of questions that I had. Whether you felt like Mayfair and upwards north, whether you were caucusing with them or whether you just felt like, because for me personally, I don't really get up there that often. I think part of it is because it is so hard to get there. So I do see if we can, I'm curious what Reservation 13 looks like. Maybe that stays in Hill East, and going 1 or 2. My worry is that, we do want these ANC meetings to be accessible to people to actually get there. So I think around 7 commissioners, this map shows 9. That was more than I really wanted. But again, the system was what it was. 7, I think, is ideal. When you get to, more commissioners, the meetings become so prohibitively long that it can backfire and it can drive civic engagement down. So I do hope that that is taken into consideration as well. But that being said, if I could understand if Hill East, Reservation 13, and DC General, if they're what those numbers look like, what that population looks like, then exploring further east of the river, obviously with Melissa's input, I think would be
co-chairs, we are at time on this map.
Thank you very much.
We have exceeded our time. Thank you, Ms. Payne, for your map. I see one hand, but Commissioner Alcorn's hand's been up for quite a while. Commissioner, I'm gonna stretch a little bit here, and if you have a comment about the map, but we're gonna let Ms. Payne go at this point.
Sure, thank you, Commissioner. No, not a comment about the map, but just about the DC jail in general. And this is data that the community's actually been trying to clarify and that Mr. Campbell has been referencing also. Obviously, there's a limitation with the mapping software in terms of Reservation 13, which associates the DC jail population, the incarcerated population, with the other occupants of Reservation 13 at the time, and that we have tried to get some clarity as to the distinction between those who were counted in the census those who were counted in the DC jail during the census versus those who were counted elsewise on Reservation 13 during the census. And there's a bit of a mismatch in that the census tells us there may have been about 2,000 incarcerated individuals during the census, but the Department of Corrections tells us that between the central detention facility and the central treatment facility, those 2 buildings that comprise the DC jail, the population around census time may have been about 1,400. So just being able to pinpoint precisely what the population of the area known as the DC jail, which would be the CDF and the CTF, is still a bit of an elusive target right now, but that does figure into some of the map making that we've been trying to do generally.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Alcorn. Commissioner Leaney, we've spent way more time than we should have on that map.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Excuse me, just as an FYI, Bryn Barnett had her hand raised during that map. Don't know if you want to take that or not, but just wanted to notify you that she had her hand raised, as well as Commissioner Dorothy Douglas.
My mistake. I should have made the announcement that this is a working session between the map makers and the task force. Public questions, if we have time, we will take those, but not like in conjunction with task member questions. We had 3 public listening sessions, and you will have an opportunity as the public to comment on whatever map the task force comes up with. And there may be time at the end of this, but we need to roll through and make sure we get all of the maps today. This is pretty much a critical point for us, and we have to make sure we get through all of the maps today. I hope that makes sense.
Gotcha. I'll just make note of the hands, and if you have time at the end, I'll let you know who has their hand raised.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Co-chair, I received a note that Bob Coomber is now in the meeting. Do we want to rotate back up to him, or do you want to go to Keith Towery's map first and then go back?
Let's keep rolling through, and then we'll come back and pick up where we started.
This map is called Ward 7 Stronger Together. All right. Keith, you've got 5 minutes. I believe that's what the co-chairs, few presenters.
Okay. Can you guys hear me pretty well?
Yes, hear you very well.
Thank you.
Tell us about your map.
Definitely. Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Santari. It's my honor to present a map that we are hoping drives the message of unity. And it also shows collaboration, and it also shows how it's feasible to make sure that we are all working together for our beautiful ward. So the map that you see before you is drawn out completely for the entirety of Ward 7. It encompasses all of the parameters that we need to set. There are particular areas in which we did make notation, in which the population has an issue that is known with GIS, and that we know that further decisions will need to be done. But for the majority of this map, the populations are within their correct parameters. I want to address the map to the public as we're looking through the checklist, right? Just to ensure that we are identifying each of the particular points that we are saying we need to do in order to come up with a map that can fit and please our new beautiful ward. So we're talking about equal representation. Some of the maps we've seen have either had no commissions on, no single ANCs on west of the river, or just only multiple ANCs west of the river. We wanted to make sure that we took concerns that we've heard, such as from Commissioner Blair, our chairwoman for this particular task force. And we wanted to make sure that we create SMDs that are equally matched on both sides. For example, you'll look at the new 7A, which was an old relic of what 7DC was at one point, to create a brand new commission that has 4 SMDs that are east of the river, and also 4 SMDs that are west of the river. We also did the same thing when you look with 7F. We made sure to balance the amount of SMDs as best as we can for both sides. Another great feature of the map is we tried our best to adhere to neighborhoods. There was a civic association map that was displayed a while ago, and it showed the boundaries for functioning civic associations. And those are things that we took into account. As it relates to what we see west of the river, We looked at all of the maps that have been submitted thus far to understand exactly how those neighbors identify their neighborhoods, to try to keep that within the boundaries best as we can, particularly knowing that Keeman Park had the largest civic association over there. We made sure that those things adhere to that particular boundary. The other thing we did for ease for viewing this particular map is we color coded all of the particular proposed commission areas based off a certain color, right? So it'd be easier to follow and mark. When we talk about minority voting power, again, it goes back to that principle of ensuring that we have equal representation on both sides, and that all parties are welcome to the table and all parties have a decision at the table. For compact and contiguous, we made sure that no boundaries had weird, I guess, quote unquote, gerrymandering, where we made sure that everything is compact and contiguous. This is why that you have the color coding map to display that as well. Preserving community of interest. Again, I talked about just our intent to make sure that we honor those civic association and natural neighborhoods that we know exist. Whole census block. There is definitely a place in which we know that there are some issues, such as Parkside, where that block is known already by the Office of Planning, that would have to be divided up in order for it to fit, as well as there are going to have to be some tough conversation about what should take place in Reservation 13 to properly make sure that is adjusted for and accounted for too. But our map does that. It does not intentionally cut any whole census blocks. In areas where there has to be a cut because the city knows that through Office of Planning, we make sure that is identified as well. I think I've kind of covered everything that's on the checklist. I know that there's probably going to be more questions than the need for me to do the presentation, but I just want to just point out that this is about unity, and this is ensuring that all sides are heard and that we can all work together. This is a new relationship that we're all entering into, and I think it's wonderful that we can produce a map that from both sides will allow us to collaborate, continue to grow together, and be stronger together. And I do want to thank you for the time you allowed me to present today.
Thank you, sir, for your map. At this point,
We are at time on presentation, and we have 5 minutes for questions.
I have a question. I haven't asked one question, but I'm going to be real brief in terms of looking at what's designated as 7B. Keeping the numbers between 1900 and 2100, how can we ensure that those SMDs are where they need to be? I see one at 1878, 1854, 1779, 1805, 1881.
Okay.
What can we do?
Sure. So as I mentioned, there are some things that still need to be tweaked out, right? There's some things that due to the way that the software is designed, right? We know that the software was not designed to get down to the SMD block level as we're using it for. And OP is aware that there's things that need to kind of switch up. A great example of that is what you will see in 7B01 and the connection between, I think that is 7F06. We know that we're going to have to, and yeah, 7B01, 7B06, we know that there has to be a certain cutoff that will properly redistribute the population as it needs to be. As it relates to that, that will also allow for the members of 7B to reallocate appropriately their SMD ranges. But that can only happen once we start to have a map that we can feel comfortable with, that we give to OP, that allows those additional directions to take place.
Okay,
I just wanted to put up on the screen that some of those details have been worked out by the people working on the map. So
I would like to bring up the map for the civic associations, because I'm going to stick up for the civic associations every chance we get, in terms of how the overlay looks between trying to keep them from being in two different ANCs.
Yep, I'm bringing that up right now. Can you see the Civic Association map?
Not yet.
No, it's a white screen currently.
Oh, my, sorry, my screen share is being ornery. Let me fix that. Okay, now can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so we're talking about Fort Davis. Who else would be down in that area to be concerned with 7B? I'm not familiar with that particular, or any of the civic associations there. So if someone from 7B can speak to how maybe that can come up when the task force members get an opportunity to speak, and how the civic associations align within the ANCs.
Would you like for me to take a bat at that, or are you asking for somebody from the 7B community to talk about that?
Well, if the 7B community is intimately familiar with that, then 7B, someone from 7B. Because they're gonna have to speak for or speak to their civic associations if they do or do not line up, or the effort that was made to try to line them up.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Humphrey from 7B07. I got to really take a look at this, because we have several commissions and several civic associations as far as Fort Davis, Fort DuPont, Penn Branch, DuPont Park. So, I mean, just in 7B in itself, Randall Highlands, we have several commissions or several civic associations that this will impact. So I really have to take a hard look at this and really see this map. I appreciate you. I really have to take a hard look at this just to see what we have going on.
Thank you. Well, there'll be time for that. There'll be time for that, because again, we have to look at adjusting for the population. So we'll keep that in mind.
Chairs, I have
task
a
force
question.
Task force, I'm turning it over to the task force. I see.
So Chair Blair, in terms of the task force questions,
yes,
I see hands raised. I think task force member Justin Leaney had a procedural question for you, and then I see Nisha Petruni, Mandela Deskins, Lee Wilson, and Ashley Ruff, and Dr. Marla Dean.
Okay, let's start with our facilitator, Commissioner Leaney.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, I was under the impression we weren't having non-task force members speak on the maps at this point.
We weren't, I didn't call on anyone other than the task force. I'm not sure how that mic is open, but that wasn't something that I would invite.
Also, as a heads up, we've used 5 minutes on this question, but we have many questions. So do you want to extend time on this discussion?
Oh, we will give the task force time. We've got a lot of task force hands up.
All right.
I don't want to not hear from the task force. This is basically a working session for the task force to review maps. That's why we're here.
Do you want me to, how much time do you want to spend on further discussion on this map? Just so I can set a timer.
What have we been giving? 7 minutes?
We used that 7 minutes already.
We already used that 7. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Let's go to 5.
5 more? Okay.
We've got like 6 or 7 hands up.
Yeah.
So I don't want to slight them. This is an important process. I know we have limitations, but we try to do what we can when we can.
Taskmember Blair.
So on that note, Chair Blair.
I'm going to withdraw my question. Sheila, I'll withdraw my question due to time.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Lee Wilson. So again, Commissioner Blair, I see Nisha Petruni, Mandela Deskins, Lee is going to lower his hand, Ashley Ruff, and Dr. Dean in that order.
Well, we will take them in that order. Nisha Petruni was the first name.
Yes.
Hi, I just wanted to confirm, thank you, Keith, for submitting this map, since it, I think, shows what we were talking about on the previous map with a more equitable layout of SMDs across the river. But my question is, could you speak to 7D02? I'm not sure if I'm just seeing an error in the numbering or in that was something as a result of the mapping tool, but if you could speak to that, please.
Sure, and I think you're referring to what we see on the map here as 7A02. Is that correct? Is that accurate?
Well, I see a 7D02 in the northernmost part that seems to be part of the 7A commission.
I'm sorry about that. That's definitely a typo. I believe that should effectively say 7A01.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you for
that was my question.
Next hand, in the order that you were called.
Sure. The next one I see is Mandla.
Can I actually go after the next person? All my kids just came in the house, so I need to reorganize myself.
Totally understandable. Then next we would have Ashley Ruff.
Okay. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So I have a question. I wanted to see what Reservation 13 looks like on this map. If possible, please.
We're focused on that right now. I don't know. Are you seeing the map, the screen share?
Okay. I'm a visual person, so, and you know, I'm a mommy too, just like maybe was a dad. So I frequent Kingman Park area and Reservation 13. So I definitely wanted to see that. I did have one more question, but I think that I can wait since that we're on a time schedule, and it was just based off of the core rules that came out. So if we want to, we can come back and circle back on that. But that's all that I wanted to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Task Force Member Ruff.
There's somebody speakers unmuted, and I don't also think they're a task force member, so I just want to alert that too, because I know that we had some people that weren't task force member were able to make comments, and I just want to make sure we're fair and equal about it, but just want to let y'all know that.
Thank you for saying that.
Let's see, next in line we have Dr. Marla Dean, and then after that, Brian Alcorn. Dr. Dean? I know she's here. Okay, let me go to Brian Alcorn.
Hey there, everybody. Keith, thanks for the map. It's I like it. What I wanted to ask, though, just some particulars as it relates to 7F07. It looks like that is actually two sort of non-connected pieces. One to the west that seems to incorporate the highway and some railroad tracks, and then there's a sort of sliver in the middle, and then it jumps over to the populated area. Is that just a mapping error as well?
Yeah, so we needed to try to account for the areas that we knew that we had, just so we can have more definitive numbers and to demonstrate properly. To be blatantly honest with you, as we look at what we see as we're identifying at west of the river, this is actually directly lifted from a map that there was a lot of consensus for the ANC, the ANCs that were formerly 6. So we just took it on good faith that they knew exactly how they would like their communities to be drawn upon if they were able to split it across different SMD boundaries to create their own ANC commission on that side. But I think what it does is it just equally applies the number that it should be. I hope that answers your question. Since we know that some things will have to be split because OP has already defined and said this will have to happen, I'm thinking maybe the rationale too was that they were going to split something within Reservation 13 to make those numbers work.
But I mean, just as it relates to the non-populated part, I mean, let's see, how could I better describe this? The portion that is along, yeah, exactly. The western portion in the yellow highlight.
Oh, okay. So that particular portion. So and this is another thing that we have to get a cut from OP, right? So you'll see like, it looks like, it disappeared. There you go. We are asking for a cut to be made to make it a straight through cut, right? So I believe the street there is B Street. If I'm incorrect, somebody from 7F or 7B, please correct me.
You're correct.
So it will be B Street. So that will bring it completely across. The map is a little misleading on the tool because we aren't able to do that at this time. But that will be the intention, to cut across B Street so that this will be a full compact contiguous single member district.
Got it. Okay, so just a mapping limitation. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you for that clarification.
I want to let everyone know we're at time, that we've used the extra 5 minutes. So co-chairs, I don't know if you want to extend the time for the other questions or move on to the next map.
How many more maps do we have?
We have 2 more maps. We're going to go back and do Bob Cooper's maps next.
Okay, at this point, co-chair, I am of the mind that we continue with, I think I only see 2 more task force hands. Is that correct? Chief of Staff Bunn, help me out counting there.
Yes, I see Mandela, he said come back to him earlier. I also see Dr. Marla Dean. Hopefully she's back. And that's it. Yes, Wendell Felder had his hand up, but he dropped it. So right now you have the 2.
We're going to take the 2 remaining and then circle back.
Could I ask a question? Because I had my hand up and I don't want
Excuse
to
me,
be
but
ignored.
this is time for task force members. We're speaking with task force members specifically. We don't want to ignore anyone.
So
we don't want to ignore anyone.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Blair, it looks like she came in under Dr. Dean's link and I'm not sure.
Did.
Dr. Dean must have shared her link. So I'm going to put you in the attendee. And if there's time, as Commissioner Blair said, she'll get to public comment, but this is just for task force members.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Commissioner Emeritus Linda Green.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so she's been moved to an attendee again. I believe that Dr. Dean shared her unique link, and that's what we were seeing was Dr. Dean's name. So again, task force members, please don't share your links.
Okay, I think we had one more hand from a task force member before we go on to the next map.
Yes, so it looks like Mandela lowered his hand, but task force member Wendell Felder has his hand raised.
Commissioner Felder.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Chairperson, for recognizing me. I was just looking at some of the comments in the chat, and one of the comments was 7E looked disfranchised, or the structure of 7E wasn't what folks from the community anticipated. So I wanted to know, Keith, if you can kind of speak to like your rationale for the new structure or proposed structure of 7E.
Okay, and can I ask a question, because I haven't been monitoring the chat? Is that multiple commissioners from 7E making that statement?
Let me see. I just reoccurring disenfranchisement. So I just wanted to just speak to that. I don't know if it's multiple or not.
I just saw it come by. Delia Hausiel, I think, has been asking about it. she said 2 communities were stripped from 7E and they only have 7 SMDs, whereas others have more.
Okay, and I'll speak to that too. So there's definitely has been a conversation with 7E, Lee Wilson, Caprice Kassan, and myself, Keith Santari, have been given this really delicate task of talking through these issues with our fellow colleagues on the task force. And we have definitely presented a map to the commissioners of ANC 7E, and they definitely expressed their concern that they saw a lot of the other proposed commission areas with 8, or in some cases 9. And there was supposed to be some talks that a commissioner was supposed to be working through, so we can be able to work through that issue. And it just didn't take place. It just didn't happen. It didn't come out the way that it needed to come out. But for the sake of unity, for where we are, and talking about some of the general principles as it relates to great weight, and understanding that great weight is about having the cohesion of your single member district representatives come together to vote together in unison for something. It appeared to me in that conversation, we settled that we were okay if that could not fulfill itself. That is something that I know it's just a harsh thing to deal with. This isn't a final map. This is just a way for us to try to advance the conversation, and it's doing what we wanted to do. This is a discussion map, and I think people are willing to try to make sure that nobody's walking away feeling as if somebody's getting the bitter end of the deal. So I look forward to continue to having those conversations and seeing what we can do. But definitely, I do want to note though that I don't believe that is the entire sentiment of the entire commission. And I think that has to be said too as well.
No, I appreciate that, Keith. And, I just wanted clarity. I think to your point, this is an arduous task. We really have to make sure that we're meeting the interests of all of the residents in different communities across the ward. So I just wanted to know your rationale, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right. And I'm sure you appreciate too the conversation that's taking place in 7D, which is people are saying 7A. Just rest assured that that same due diligence that's taking place with everybody that we have here on this map.
Thank you, task force members. I think that concludes the conversation for this particular map.
Wait, Commissioner Blair, you still have Manila Deskins.
Okay, I didn't see his hand. Sorry, didn't want to.
No, sorry. No, it was kind of weird. I put it down because I thought I was talking, and then it was like, oh, well, that meant actually you didn't want to talk. So no worries. I just wanted to comment on this map because I saw that Commissioner Felder asked this question about this area here. And as a representative from the Capitol View community and from 7C, I was really hoping that this would happen because our community is split on 2 sides on either side of the street. And actually more than half of it is in the southeast side. So that entire SMD is the Capitol View community. And we have a lot of issues with being able to truly work within our community because, we're asking the community volunteers to go to 2 different ANC meetings in order to keep updated on the things that are going on. In addition, in Capitol View, there's actually a split where there is another community, which is the Capitol Gateway community, which was the set of townhomes that was built, I want to say like 10 years ago. Half of that is on one side and a portion is on the other side. And so for both the larger Capitol View community and the smaller Capitol Gateway community that both reside within both of these areas, it made sense to connect them both so that they could then work more effectively with we could all work more effectively with each other at a community level as well. And so that was just like our thinking behind that idea. And I think that's something that when I've talked to these different folks, whether that's the, the HOA folks or civic association folks, there is, and the commissioner, there's a clear understanding of what the purpose of that was. So I just wanted to just share that because I think that, it's helpful to come from the mouth of the person who made it up. So, okay. So I'm gonna mute myself now. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And being a former commissioner in ANC 7E, I'm very familiar with that area in which you're speaking of. So I appreciate that. That provides a lot of context.
Thank you. Is there anyone else I have forgotten or didn't see? I don't think so.
You have Patricia
Stamper. Wow, here I go again. Patricia Stamper, I would not want to omit you.
No, it's fine. I wanted to second what Mandela said. I actually, since I know I've been advocating and people jokingly saying, I've been saying I want Deanwood all in one ANC. That's very important because like the Capitol View Committee, they're split between two commissions that have to attend 7C's meeting and 7E's meeting. So why have that happen to another commission if I'm advocating for that for my commission? So, hey, Mandela, why can't Capitol View be on all one commission? So they can, sorry, my kids are screaming, they're fighting right now. I'm watching them too. So I just want to point out, I suggested that to Mandela and we worked together. Mandela, Max and I worked on that map together and other people, but from 7C, we really worked together and I suggested that. So I didn't want to not address that, but I'm seconding what I have to tend to my kids, but I have to second what Mandela said. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Now, is there anyone else that I didn't see that another task force member can see that I can't see?
No, ma'am. There are no panelists, task force member hands raised.
Okay. At this point, Commissioner Leaney, I believe as facilitator, you have another map for us, and I got a message saying that if it's Mr. Coomber, he is in the audience somewhere.
Yes, the next two maps are by Bob Coomber. The first one is ANC Plan, former ANC 7001 Commissioner. That's the one that was viewed last week. So I don't know if that Commissioner still wants to review that one or.
No, Commissioner Leaney, it's the most similar or something, least changes or something along those lines. That was the one.
Minimal change.
Minimal change. There you go.
Minimal change map. I'll load that one now. And you have 5 minutes.
Great. Yeah, no, I'll try to be quick. So this map started in our neighborhood in Kingman Park, looked at 7B01 and the 7A and then the 6A and 6B commissions and tried to redistribute them on the western side of the ward here in an as equitable a way as possible. 7F 07 and 7A, so formerly 7F07 now would be in this map 7A07, I think, would be too big. And then the one just to its west, which I think is 06, 7A06 would be too small. So you'd have to take some folks out of Reservation 13 and those buildings, like dedicate certain space on that to the smaller one to even out the size. And then we proceed east of the river in the north, and then east of the river would the 7A commission, pending river terraces interest, could absorb that to create that cross river connectivity with, if river terrace is interested. Though this map kind of shows how it could be something of a free agent. It could caucus to the east, north, or west, depending on their interests. 7D, which I tried to keep as this, would be to the north and to the east. I tried to keep as similar as it has been in recent years. There will be a new commission because there's a significant amount of population growth just north of East Capitol, where there's now 7001 added there, and 70 where 7005 is. And 7C remains largely the same, just with redistributions here and there to account for population changes. If you go south of East Capitol, you can look at in the east 7E, which again stays as the same as it can be given population changes. 7F, the only significant change to 7F is that 7F07 is absorbed by the western ANC of 7A, and then 7B remains as unchanged as possible, again, given population changes here and there. So really, it's kind of a stasis map and just kind of exploring the possibility of keeping everything as similarly as it is as possible as it is right now. So yeah, happy to take any questions and hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Commissioner Coomber, for your map. I would just like to touch on the idea of compact and contiguous and how, well, I guess it's 7D up there. 7D is probably the most fragmented ANC that we have in Ward 7. And so just if you can reiterate for us, just what were the changes you did there to try and keep them together without making a bigger, bigger segments, because right now, you know, River Terrace, Kingman Park, all in 7D. So what was your solution? I just wanted to get clarification on that.
Sure. So there was a significant population growth around East Capitol, west of 7005 and in 7005, which created the possibility for 7001 and 7006 to be created in there. I think 7006 was original, but they would, there are those two, and then 7002 has a significant enough population that it could be redistributed. Commissioner Alini has explored this as well, taking a certain amount of people out of 7002 and redistributing them to 7004 to make the numbers work. And then, 7007 is the existing commission. I believe it's Commissioner Douglas's commission. That's as similar as it was, pretty similar to what it was before, with changes here and there again to account for population changes and trying to get the numbers right. But you do have that separation of the highway and the railway tracks. Originally in the first map that I presented, it took a downtown ANC similar to 7006 and connected it with 7004, 7002, and 7003 on this map to make a four commissioner commission, if that were of interest. And this one just kind of, again, strives to keep everything as similar as it was before. So that was, but while still having, you know, a connection among the different commissions.
Okay, thank you. Since I want to ask a question about the civic associations, because the minimal change is what this is all about. So there probably wouldn't be any indicator that there's something different about civic associations than we already have existing. Can you scroll down to 7E? Okay, that's all I have. At this point, do we have any questions for Mr. Coomber from the task force members?
Yes, Commissioner Blair, you have 4 task force members' hands raised. And I'm just going to call them 5. I'm going to call them in the order that I see them. Max Richmond, Travis Swanson, Ashley Ruff, Nisha Petruni, and Keith. So Max, you're up.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Coomer, for your map. Justin, if you could stroll up to the upper area. I believe Chair Blair already alluded to this. Since the primary focus of this map was to make the minimum changes required, it sounds like the map did not look at communities of interest as a specific focus. For example, the Deanwood community, which extends to 295, is separated in two ANCs in this map between 7D and 7C, although the Deanwood community has expressed interest at listening session 1 in creating a community of interest within one ANC. I just was wondering if you did take into consideration communities of interest across the ward, or if the primary focus, like Co-Chair Blair said, was on the fewest changes possible.
Yeah, I mean, I did take into consideration, but like you say, it would be the overriding interest was the similarity to the existing map on this one. In the original map that I submitted, I did take that into account specifically and fashioned a North of East Capital Commission of 12 that Deanwood could, I think if that's what Deanwood wants to pursue, I think absolutely it should be encouraged to, it should be allowed to do it, but, not my call either. But yeah, that previous map could be a version to do that.
Thank you.
Co-chairs, we're at time. Do you want to extend the discussion time on this map?
I think we should. This is the last map we have to review, correct?
That's correct.
Co-chair, how do you feel about that?
I agree.
Thank you.
So next up, according to what I see, would be Travis Swanson.
Thank you, Ms. Bond and co-chairs. So looking at this map, I'm looking particularly at the 7B portion. And I know it's supposed to be a minimal change map, but I definitely see some problems that I would see for 7B that I would want to see tweaked out. This map appears to cut much of the Greenway community out of 7B, and residents of Greenway have made very clear that that's not something they're okay with. And we understand that some residents will have to, change commissions. That's part of this process. But residents, excuse me, residents of Greenway perceive the attempts to remove them from 7B as an attempt to make 7B, which includes some of Ward 7's most affluent neighborhoods like Hillcrest and Pembranch, a commission that is solely built for the more affluent residents of Ward 7, since Greenway is one of the lowest median income SMDs or census tracts in the ward. In the interest of diversity, I do believe that Greenway should remain in 7B. And as one of the task force members representing 7B, I would also say that this map also just seems to have some other issues. The map also keeps Fort Davis split between ANC 7B and 7E. And I know they would like to be united. And I don't know that I necessarily have a strong preference on whether that happen in 7B or 7E, but I think that it can be achieved in one or the other. And I think that it would be a disservice not to unite Fort Davis in one or the other. And the map also seems to unnecessarily split the Pennsylvania Avenue corridor, which currently is under a small area plan. It seems to divide the Randall Highlands community in half, and it also seems to blur the lines between Penn Branch and DuPont Park. So speaking solely about the SMDs in 7B, I'll close by saying this map, I don't feel like it meets the needs of the residents or the neighborhoods or the civic associations in 7B. So if we were to move this one forward, I'd like to see a lot of massaging of those SMDs in ANC 7B. But I do appreciate you being here today and bringing this map forward. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. And you know better than I do. So I was really just trying to play in with the numbers, really.
I'm on a meeting. I'm 1, 2, 3. Yes. No, I'm on the live meeting. I have no idea.
Excuse me. Mic is open.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was talking to my son, y'all. Like, I'm on mommy duty time at the same time. So my question was, and I apologize again about the mic. My question was about Crawford and Minnesota. Can I see that blown up where the actual ending mark is and the beginning mark is? Thank you, Breton, for being patient. Thank you. I see it in clear, and I just wanted to say I like the way it looks. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm walking my kid home right now, so I totally understand.
Always, baby. We always on kitty duty.
That's right.
Next I see Keith, and then
I need the
Manla has his hand raised as well.
Okay, thank you. There's two questions I have. The first question just deals with the sense of unity and figuring out how we can make sure that west of the river is connected and working with east of the river, particularly since we've heard the stories of just having one particular community from either side isn't sufficient enough for true collaboration to occur. How do you envision that collaboration will occur with only having river terrace included in your equations? And then the last one is, I guess, more of a question or a comment. Since this map is something that is quote unquote minimalistic, that means that this map wouldn't be taking into account something that we've all decided was a principle that we wanted to honor, which was trying to get neighborhoods aligned within commission areas. Perfect example in 7E. 7E is splits Capitol View. You've heard this today. 7E also splits Fort Davis. A lot of residents in Fort Davis have made it clear that they want to return back to 7B like 10 years ago. And you've also heard residents from Capitol View mention here on this call today that they would also like to be reunited as one for greater projects that are taking place and just for community unity. So if you can just kind of speak to those issues, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you for the opportunity. And I support whatever individual communities want for their community. And I think that they know best what changes are appropriate for their community. And my initial map really did focus on, on an east of Benning neighborhood for that continuity, and a west of Benning, north of Pennsylvania for that community, and then Deanwood expressing what they wanted. I talked to Commissioner Linney about what some of the folks are talking about in his neighborhood as well, and trying to reflect that in that original map. This map is more of just kind of approach to show what it would look like to keep things as similar as possible, though there are some, weird population changes in that they're extreme in some places and minimal or even a lost population in others. So it just had to adjust in certain instances. And just reflected that, but absolutely want to respect the needs and desires of individual communities, and I think that should apply to communities just as well west of the on the west side of the ward. And I think you've heard very clearly from commissioner after commissioner and resident after resident that we have tried cross river communities. And in many instances, they were problematic. And I think that the familiarity is really critical when you're dealing with something like an advisory neighborhood commission. It's about your neighborhood. It's about familiarity, and it's about access to meetings. If the least among us of the residents who don't have cars, can't make it to a meeting, which is across the river, which is a natural barrier, not a barrier that was created by this process or anything, then you're really limiting who can attend those meetings, and that works both ways, whether the meetings are west of the river or east of the river. So I mean, those are kind of the overall thoughts that I had with it, but definitely support, if we have communities asking for certain things, to respect that and to adhere to those wishes.
And I'm just sorry that you just didn't address the question I had regarding a balance, right? Right now you have one east of the river community attached to the other ANC communities and west of the river. And your argument is that it just doesn't work out. It's unfair when it's unbalanced. I'm asking the direct question: how do you propose balancing east and west of the river commission areas so that both sides can be fully represented?
I don't know that balance would give to full representation. I'm not really understanding what that thought, where that idea is coming from. I think that if you have you have full commissions east of the river. And if you have a full commission on the west end, then those individual commissions can be represented. And I think that you've heard the testimony of individuals throughout this process reiterating that that thought. So it really, I see the balance more as allowing for accessibility and familiarity and connectiveness rather than doing something because we think it could be a good idea despite what we in our community have seen for 20 years often doesn't work. As far as River Terrace itself goes, I've said repeatedly, I think that's up to River Terrace. I want to hear from Ms. Freeze. I want to hear from former commissioners, current commissioner, what they think and what they want, and I want to respect what they want to do. And as I've said, they can go east, they can go north, they can go south, and I think any way that they go, they can. It should be up to their what they want.
Co-chairs, we are at time on this question, or on questions for this map.
Thank you, Commissioner Leaney. I still see at least one hand, maybe two, and we may be out of time, but because we don't have additional maps, I think we can afford to hear our other two task force members in reference to Mr. Coomber's map. Co-chair, are you with me? Co-chair nods.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So co-chairs, you have Mandla and Brian Alcorn with their hands raised.
Mr. Deskins, would you like to go?
Yes, please. Yep, I will. Can you move it over a little bit so we could see 7D07? I had just I had a comment and then a couple questions. So if you look at this area of this 7D07 map, really that little box right there right there with the 4 of the 2074, that is the population of that. That is actually a mistake in the census. Half of that, more than half of that is an empty lot, but it is given 1,000 people. And so we were going to ask for some sort of waiver or something to fix that issue, because I mean, if you look at this map alone, 7D07 only has probably 1,100 residents in it, even though it says 2074. So I just wanted to note that there is a really strange thing with the map right there that will really make this map totally unworkable, right? Because that would be, 1,000 people leaving an SMD where there's nowhere else to collect it. So I assume that you didn't know that before, but before I go on, I just wanted to ask if that was something that you were aware of when you were making the map.
No, definitely not. And I've talked to Commissioner Lenny about it and hadn't heard that, but definitely could make adjustments to this, to this one if need be to adjust to that concern.
For sure. Thank you. I had a little bit more, Chair Blair, if I could. So there were two other things. You could zoom it out a little bit. So there were, there are some smaller things here in the map that just come from, not necessarily being familiar with the whole ward. And I don't think we expect you to know everything about like 90,000 people or whatever. But I wanted to also come to your comments about creating this, the 7A, which was basically like, mostly west of the river. And I know you said before that you had this experience before with being the only commission east of the river and how that was like disenfranchising. And I'm just trying to figure out, like, when you make something like that is all west of the river with just River Terrace, especially after we asked Melissa, who is representing River Terrace here earlier in this call, how, what she preferred, and there was discussion about continuing into 7D, like how you would redo your map to take that into consideration, and also take into consideration and not create what you experienced before for the last 10 years, from what you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's nice about this map is 7A08 in this map. River Terrace could easily caucus with 7B or go west with 7F. And this is true of my other map too. They were kind of free agents, could easily go whichever direction they wanted to figure out where they wanted to caucus. So I'd again defer to the River Terrace neighborhood to make that determination, what they thought was best.
Okay, I think that was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coomber. I think we still have 2 more hands. Is Commissioner Alcorn? I think you might be next.
Thank you, Commissioner. And thanks, Mr. Coomer, for this map as well. I've had an opportunity to have a close look at it, an opportunity to also speak with Ms. Fries and appreciate some of the River Terrace perspectives, not on this map, but just generally. Bob, you obviously have a lot of experience having been a commissioner in Kingman Park previously. You know the trials and travails of being not only the sort of westernmost, or rather a western outpost of Ward of an ANC, but for at least 10 of those years, the only western outpost of Ward 7 for 2000 to 2010. It is interesting how, looking at a map, you can see 2 different things. On this map, as it relates to River Terrace, I see that it actually creates kind of a keystone and a connection point. And that is to say that the westernmost sort of outpost of Ward 7 now, which has grown to 15th Street, really is key linked into the eastern part of Ward 7 by a very important interconnection, and that is Benning Road, which has a major bus line, has a major vehicle transportation egress, has a very active bike and pedestrian path over Benning Road Bridge, over that bridge, to connect with the bike paths and the walking paths that go north and south, as well as to River Terrace. So, I really see a crossroads there, much as 7F, presently holds itself out as a crossroads, sort of in the southern and central anchor point. I really do see a crossroads there, and one that does bring the river, both sides of the river together. So just a different perspective there. But if there was anything you wanted to share, with your long tenure early on as ANC commissioner, as the outpost of Ward 7, that's a perspective that maybe might not be appropriate for this forum, or maybe it is, but I'd certainly like to engage with you a little bit more.
Yeah, happy to talk. I mean, I know we're short on time, so I don't want to, get too far into it. But yeah, it was just being confronted with, that's a neighborhood issue. That's not a commission issue. While sitting on a neighbor advisory neighborhood commission is kind of sums up the frustrations that we had. We had multiple votes about our neighborhood denied, and you can point directly to things that weren't enacted with street safety, with housing affordability issues that we were trying to approach in a certain way that weren't addressed, and it was a frustrating experience. But one of the thoughts that we had about bringing, and I forgot to mention this to one of the earlier questions, the president of Friends of Kingman Park suggested maybe that the new commission that is substantially west of the river could dedicate itself to walkthroughs of River Terrace to ensure that there was a better understanding. Like we kind of, I'm walking through Rosedale right now. I know Rosedale very well. We go to Congressional Dog Park and go through many of the other commissions that are very familiar with them. But River Terrace, and ensuring that we have familiarity with them is through that kind of walkthrough process or something like that, at least once a year, would be maybe a good way of ensuring connectivity and understanding. Just one of the thoughts that came up.
Thank you. I still see one hand up, or is that another hand? Mandela Deskins, is that a new hand? Or an old hand?
Same hand, new question.
Same hand.
Sorry, I'm having fun. It's after hours. Okay, y'all just got to bear with me. I wanted to ask one more question about this map. And I think you kind of addressed it, saying River Terrace, had the option to, to caucus with 7D if River Terrace wanted to. But did you have some actual opinion? I mean, did you have some opinions about this for SMDs from 7D, from what is formerly 7D, and the 4 SMDs that would include like Rosedale, Kingman Park, River Terrace, and one more, creating their own commission? Did you have a personal opinion on that after seeing Task Force member Towery's earlier map?
On the other commission that was kind of split between one side of the river and the other?
Yeah, and it was 4 from the, from Kenilworth area going down into River Terrace, and then 4 from the west of the riverside.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have the same concern that I've been expressing, and just that it would be, that splitting on either side of the river, where now you're if you don't have a car, you're not getting to a meeting physically, and we're going to be meeting in person soon enough, and that could really disenfranchise those who either can't, walk or bike, or aren't able to afford a car. And whether the meetings are west of the river or east of the river, that could be problematic. And then just the lack of familiarity that I was talking about a little bit before. If you're familiar with a neighborhood, you can be a little bit more familiar with its problems. You don't have to be brought up to speed. You don't consider it another neighborhood, kind of like we were thought of, and you can be considered as a commission, and and the similar interest that you have about a certain issue. But I understand the appeal, and I understand the that it's a good idea on paper. We've practiced it, and it's been difficult, and I think Melissa was reflecting that as well, that it can be difficult if we don't handle it properly, which is why I've said steadfastly, River Terrace should be able to, do it at once.
So I would say thank you for that insight. And I just wanted to make a comment in general, because I've heard this come up before about accessibility. I am being where I live, where there is no accessibility to meetings. Our communities are much more spread out because of the lack of population density based on lack of investment and yada, yada. We can go down that train, but we're not going to go down there. I just wanted to say that however this shakes out, I would be happy to work with other task force members, and definitely request that the virtual option for ANC meetings stays, because I think that that's always an issue that we're always facing. And, regardless of how the map works out for people in your community, we will still have the exact same problem that we've always had about the ability for people to attend meetings. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and I just want to flag that's something that we should probably consider either way.
Makes sense, absolutely.
And with that, I'm going to put my hand down for the second time, and I'm going to mute myself. Thank you.
So Co-Chair Blair, it looks like Mandela, let me lower your hand. So now I see task force members Ashley Ruff and Patricia Stanford.
Okay, those will be the last 2 hands on this map. Let's take them in the order which you just read them.
Good evening again, task force and members of the community. So I kind of wanted to piggyback off of Mandela and just say that over here in 7F, we have not been able to afford the communications as far as internet, just being a virtual period. I think that it's a hard thing over here. And I'm not saying that everyone else doesn't go through that hardship, but what I am saying as maybe an opinion and a comment is that we all need to work together and figure out how we can beat that objective and kind of just make everything close. Right now, everything is in virtual. I don't think that things will be normal again for another 2 years. Sir, excuse me, but I don't think that things will be normal again for a while. And so right now, I just think that we all need to focus on keeping Ward 7 as a whole in its entirety. We are stronger together than more divided. And that is my major thing. You guys hear my son in the background. Every day when I wake up, I get up and I do this job for free. I do it for him. And I just want to see all of us be equal together. And I have seen Ward 7. My grandparents have owned their house since 1940. And I'm gonna make this real short. My grandfather was the first homeowner. My grandmother would be the second because my grandfather is deceased since 2009. And I'm sorry, 2006. And so when I came back to the city, I saw that things, yeah, they had changed, but they hadn't in its entirety. And it was very hard for me to adapt here. Very, very hard coming from going to school down south. And me being just from here, we all need to work together. We need to just figure out this map. We need to figure out where we're going to go. It shouldn't matter about systematic racism. It shouldn't matter about emails about 7 people saying that they don't want to be in a standalone community, anything. We need to work together. We are here, we are stuck. So how can we move forward? And that's what I want to see. I want to see my son grow up in this neighborhood. I want to see myself progress in this neighborhood. And I want to see my neighborhood progress as well. And that's all that I have to say for tonight.
Thank you for your input. Ms. Stamper, Patricia Stamper.
I just wanted to reiterate what Ashley said. We are stronger together. Also, there is an internet issue. I don't know if it's a generational issue, more so than an internet issue, or a little bit of both. I do believe that some of our more seasoned residents need some soft skills training on how to use this new internet platform that they had to use. A lot of seniors on my block wanted to submit maps, but then I had to give them a crash course in how to use Zoom, how to go online and set up a username. So that took time and energy that I necessarily didn't always have, but I made the effort to do it because I wanted them to feel included in this process. I just wanted to point out that there were more people that wanted to submit maps that weren't given the opportunity. Hey, how you doing? So I believe that there should, if we're going to have west of the river commissions, it should be equal. And say 4 here on east of the river, 4 west of the river. So we have equal power and equal on both sides. I don't know how we can get the soft skills training for our seasoned residents or residents that may need it, returning citizens and whatnot. But I don't know, maybe that's something you can ask one of our mayoral candidates in the future for, or whoever, whatever office of aging. But I just wanted to also thank Commissioner Blair and Caston. Y'all are doing an awesome job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you for that input. Thank you very much for your compliment. It's definitely a team effort. I will say that it's definitely a team effort. Couldn't do it by myself. At this point, I think that is it for task force input on this map. Thank you, Mr. Coomber. We have a few minutes left to take care of some things. At this point, I'm going to turn everything over to Commissioner Caston, my co-chair. We still have to vote, and we still probably have time to take some questions or read chat questions. And then that would be the conclusion, or lead us to the conclusion of our meeting this evening. So Commissioner Caston, co-chair, it's all in your hands, sir.
All right, thank you. Wow, we got to the final part of this session here. Look like we have enough, well, maybe not enough time. Just want to inform the public that we do have the hard job, the difficult job to vote for these maps that were presented today. However, we did see at least, I think it was like 204 hands raised from the public. And we do want to recognize that those hands that was raised. So with that being stated, I don't know exactly whether or not we have the capacity to do so. I know I saw a message from Chief of Staff Sheeta Bunn that she was transitioning. So I don't know exactly how we can get those comments in. But
Co-Chair Castone, I'm still here. I have another 5 minutes.
Okay.
We can definitely, if you want to open it up to the public, we can do that. But before we do, I just wanted to note something in the chat. You may have missed it, but I think Task Force member Nisha Petruni had a process question. So you might want to address that before you open up to the public. Just my suggestion.
You said a process question from Task Force member? Yeah.
Yes, she didn't raise her hand, but she put it in the chat. So I don't know if you saw that or not, but just wanted to flag that as an FYI.
I didn't see it.
My question was just if we could go over the definitions we're using before we vote. So what constitutes a whole, partial, or decline, just to help us as we decide how we want to vote on the maps.
Right, great question. Well, the definition was saying that as the map is being presented, or the maps that have been presented rather, if a task force member liked the map in its entirety, then that he or she should vote hold. However, if a task force member say, I partially accept this map, then he or she should put forth a definition, a vote for partial. And if the task force members simply state, hey, I don't think this map meets my objective according to my understanding, then she or he can say decline. So we ask for whole, partiality, or decline. I think we're going to look at 3 maps tonight, if my memory serves me correct. So
Co-Chair Castone.
Yes.
Clarify one. So, but even regardless if we vote whole or partial, there is still an opportunity to edit or make suggestions. Is that correct? So even if we do have a vote for whole or partial, it still is not final, and it's just, I guess that's also my clarifying question.
Yeah, exactly. Once we make that decision, then unless it's declined, but still we compiled, our votes and move on to the next stage. So it won't be a finality in a sense in that regard, but nonetheless, though, we will have been concluded this session right here. Looking at the time, I think if it was, how many people was there? I remember seeing at least 2 hands from the audience.
So Co-Chair Castone, there are 3 hands raised from the public. 2 for sure I know are commissioners. I'm not sure about the 3rd, but you have, in the order specifically that I see, Bryn Barnett, Commissioner Dorothy Douglas, and Commissioner Delia Housel. I know for sure Commissioner Douglas, Commissioner Housel, but I'm not sure about Bryn Barnett, whether or not she's a commissioner, but those are your 3 hands raised.
Thank you. Can we please recognize commissioners first? And I want to ask the commissioners who know and understand how difficult this task is for us and how we all are ready to do the business, that they make sure they be crisp and on point with their comments, with their questions, so we can move on with the rest that we have to do, the business we got to take care of tonight. So can we
Sure.
start?
So I'm going to,
how long do you want each question to go?
2 minutes, please.
Okay.
So I'm going to recognize Commissioner Dorothy Douglas first, as she had her hand raised first and the longest.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second. All right, Commissioner Douglas, if you unmute, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say thank you so much as always. I appreciate what everyone's doing. But my concern, you talked about time, there's not enough time to even get the conversation out. I want to know, as a commissioner, we don't have the experience, we wouldn't train, and I'm sure you all wouldn't train. I understand that Mr. Campbell's not an expert, and that's not fair to say something that he is when he's not. If so, I want to see the credentials. I also like to have a copy of these maps. Our ANC is dysfunctional. We don't have no way of getting access, and I'm using my personal phone even to have this conversation. I need to have data that you all can send all this information in my mail so I can share with the residents in my community. There's still a lot of confusion. And as far as Pepco, we're supposed to be opening up that area for traffic due to the traffic being backed up from 295. I don't know nothing about some coming through here in Deanwood to make 7C as one. There are two separate boundaries, and this is what this we should be addressing on. And the law says that we're representing these boundaries. It didn't say anything about crossing and taking over, make everything one party. Thank you. And I'd like to have those documents so I can review. I don't have access to no computer or laptop or a machine to work that. So you all need to should have all this stuff available for us. So I'm requesting that, doing this because this is the open meeting. And one thing I want to say, I was just pleased getting a conference call from Justin and Miss Larissa yesterday, which was unfair to me. I'm not here for a conference call. Everything has to be an open public meeting, not a closed meeting. And that's what happened yesterday, which I thought was really unacceptable. Thank you.
Can I respond
Thank
to
you,
that
Commissioner.
last bit?
Who's the next person? Rashida Bond.
I think Task Force Member Justin Leaney, his voice is low, but I think he had a question for you, Chair Castone.
Just to clarify for Commissioner Douglas, I'm really sorry that you misunderstood the intent of that call. We wanted to talk to you in advance of sharing that map with the commission because we knew that you would be upset. That was a courtesy as someone who served alongside you as a commissioner for several years. We did not want to surprise you any more than you already were.
Well, that's what the reason when you should have sent a notification that this would happen, and not on a Sunday when I'm just coming out of church. So I'm just saying to you, that wasn't a courtesy and letting me know ahead of time. That's why we had proper notifications, 7-day notice, 30-day notice, and 45 days notice, and that didn't happen. So that should have been, you could have sent something, an email or text to say, we'd like to know what time is available for you to have a conversation to talk about this. So, and then you all want to push, we're going to be less once you come through what you're deciding to do. So I'm just saying, it was still unacceptable and it shouldn't have happened. We're talking about business. And when you do business, you do it the right way.
We're at time on this question.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Douglas.
You're welcome, Dave.
The next hand that I see is Commissioner Delia Housel.
Yes, please.
Commissioner Housel.
Yes. So good evening, everyone. I want to start out by just first thanking all of the members of the task force. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone, all the members of the task force for such a great job. I know that this wasn't an easy task and it's a volunteer effort. So really appreciate all the hard work that you all have put into this effort. I don't have a question, but I do want to make a comment. My comment is that, as you all consider maps and consider drawing these new ANC boundaries and SMBs, please, I implore all of you to please make sure that you are adhering to the principles that were established and set out at the beginning of this process. I know that you've seen my text messages in the chat. I am very passionate about what appears to be injustice for ANC 7E. And so as you all are making decisions, I ask that you think about population equity and how communities could be disproportionately impacted when they have a significantly lower number of individuals within a commission. But again, I know that this is a tough task. I thank you all so much for all your hard work. And if anyone has any further questions for me or want to get in contact with me, I'll drop my information in the chat. I do have some ideas for maps that I'd love to share with others as well. Thank you.
Thank you. In the interest of time, we're going to recognize Task Force Member Marla Dean, and then we move forward to votes.
I just want to say that some of the residents in 6A have said that we have been unfair to them, and you're hearing now residents from traditional Ward 7 feeling that we have not been unfair to them. I don't think fair is an appropriate word because I don't know how you define that. But my point is, if we have not played favor to anyone, this has been a very difficult process. It has been a process where you talk to people, you try and get feedback, you try and make adjustments based on their feedback, you bring it back to other people, they're upset about the adjustments that you try and make, and it is a constant iteration of that. So if people on both sides of the ward or on every side of the ward is a little upset about what may transpire, that only speaks to the efficacy of what we've done. And that in essence, we have been fair because there is no part of the ward that will not be upset. So change is difficult, but favoritism has not been played. We have thought about the entirety of the ward. We have tried to look and make sure that every part of the ward has economic interests within their control. We have tried to think about how we can move forward as a ward collectively. And yes, so I take solace in the fact that many people are upset because from every part of the ward, because to me, that only means that we did a fair, if you want to use that word, or equitable job, because many people have had to sacrifice things. And believe me, every single group of representatives have had to sacrifice something to bring this together, to make it in the best interest of the entire ward.
Thank you, Dr. Dean. With that being stated, task force member, we have 3 maps. I'm gonna go down with the names. I apologize in beginning my tongue. I'm gonna make sure if I can't say the first name or the last name good, I'll interchange with the first or last. But that being stated, I'm asking simply for a W for whole, a P for partial, and a D for decline. Or you can say whole, partial, decline. I will start off with Francis Campbell. How do you
Commissioner
vote?
Caston, there's one more hand up. Did you speak with Ms. Barnett?
Ms. Barnett. I didn't see
Yes,
that.
I was just about to say that you have another community member. She was the last one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Melissa, for reminding me. Okay, Ms. Barnett, I'd like to recognize you, please.
Ms. Barnett, you can unmute.
Yep. Hi there. Well, I've said a lot in the chat, and I don't know. I like to think that since the chat is so vocal, that everyone has been paying attention to that as well. So I don't need to reiterate everything that I've said. But I do want to note, we are very excited, and by we, I mean my neighbors and I here in 6B10 never opposed joining or being drawn into the boundaries of Ward 7. We just really wanted to make sure that our community of interest stayed together. And I really urge you, as so many others throughout Ward 7 have been talking about the importance of, in Deanwood and in Fort DuPont, and all of us feel very strongly about compact and contiguous wards that represent the interests of neighbors and communities and allow neighbors being the immediate neighbors, not the neighbors on the other side of the river, but immediate neighbors to caucus together. So I urge you to remember that, and I really almost beg you to really remember that. That was one of the founding principles of the entire redistricting process. So I thank you for your time and your service, and look forward to staying in tune to this process and meeting more of you in person someday. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett, for that comment. All right, host members, I will begin with Mr. Campbell.
Yes, sir.
What are we voting on?
Whole, partial, decline.
Which are we voting on?
I'm sorry. This is the first map. Ebony's map. I'm sorry. Thank you, everyone. Ebony's map.
Can you pull the map up as we vote so people can read?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Give me
And,
just a second.
and Justy, help me, Justy, the official name for that very first map was what was the name for it? I have here Ebony Payne's map.
It is WTOR, sorry, I think I'm saying a radio station, WOTR and Cross River ANC for Ward 7. And I'll load it.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
And in
before we vote.
our record, that will be for this evening, that will be map number 1.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
what does partial mean again?
Great question. We're defining partial as saying that this map does not meet it doesn't meet everything that you think that our ward should have. Nonetheless, some of the components are spot on. So we want to look at saying that, for example, looking at this map here, partial or whole. If I like everything about it, so I will vote whole. Or if I don't like anything about it, I will vote decline. But if I like some portions with here, but because it doesn't encompass the other portions that I think need to be spoken of, then I would say partial. And so that's sort of like the framework of thinking that some parts can be kept, other parts need to be worked upon or discarded. But nonetheless, want to move forward with, or not necessarily move forward. This map shouldn't be completely removed from the analyzation process, but it can be on the shelf for later development or future development for that matter. So you said that the first, one more time, just
Thank
as
you,
WOTR across the river ANC.
Yeah, let me paste that into the chat for folks.
Thank you. And that will be for us to see, and that'll be map number 1. So moving right along, Mr. Campbell, what is your vote, sir?
Okay, sorry.
Is Mr. Campbell still with us?
I'm sorry, I was muted. This is map number 1?
Yes, map number 1.
Okay, partial.
Thank you. Mr. Swanson.
Decline.
I didn't understand it. What did you say?
Decline.
Oh, decline. Thank you.
Decline.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
Decline with the way that you described partial.
So is it a partial or a decline?
Decline.
Thank you. Okay, I understood what you're saying now. Okay. Mr. Deskins.
Decline.
Thank you. Ms. Blair.
Partial.
Ms. Freeze.
Decline.
Mr. Leany.
Decline.
Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson still with us? All right. Ms. Ruff.
It's going to be a decline for me.
Thank you. Ms. Bolden.
Decline.
Mr. Alcorn.
Partial.
Ms. Dean.
Decline.
Mr. Richmond.
Decline.
Ms. Stamper.
Decline.
Thank you. Mr. Felder.
Decline.
Ms. Patruni.
Partial.
Mr. Towery.
Decline.
Ms. Kaysen.
Decline.
Thank you. And I'm voting for partial. Map number 2, I believe is titled Ward 7 Stronger Together.
I'm loading that. It will be up momentarily.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Caston, I mean Chairman Caston,
Yes,
can I ask a clarifying question?
sure.
As you answered with the partial question.
Uh-huh.
If something is, if we approve it versus declining it, and it become like the actual discussion map to continue discussions, does that bar us from making any edits to it?
No, the whole is saying I like it as is. Partial is like saying I like part of it, but it still needs some work, if you will, a more working definition, if you will. But
okay. So whole means that if you agree with it in a whole, there's no more edits that could be done. Partial means that.
Well, I would say no. I'm sorry, I misspoke. And
okay.
if, back me up, co-chair, if I'm not hitting the nail on the head here. Whole is saying this map definitely needs to advance forward, hands down. It needs, you know, but it doesn't prevent from improving. But it's one that we need to we must consider this map because we all considered it in as whole, if you will.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yes.
So then to ask a re-clarifying question. So with a partial vote, all you're doing, so let me make sure I'm understanding what we're voting on, because or make sure folks understand how I'm voting. I'm voting on concepts, you know, mapping concepts, you know, not necessarily particularly a map. So when I think of partial, I'm thinking of, okay, this is the concept that's being put forward. So in the previous one, why I voted decline was because it only had one ANC, you know, east of the river, you know, but had it been another type of map, I might have voted differently, like I did in the previous map, to advance the conversation and to advance the concept. So does this partial vote, if I vote partial, actually, never mind. I think I understand. Never mind.
Okay. And co-chair, you want to, because I don't know, maybe I might be my language, but I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, what have you. Can I, to make sure it's perfectly understood what I'm saying?
I think you're doing fine. If you're accepting a map as a whole, you're saying the map should go forward. It still needs to be tweaked. None of these maps are perfect. And I tried to reiterate that from the beginning, that we're not going to get a perfect map. They all need something, but we actually need an indicator as that, okay, we agree this should go forward. So you're doing fine, I think.
Okay.
I guess my clarifying question, and I'm sorry to hold things up, is to what extent can the edits be made?
I question. I don't even know who's speaking. Who is talking here? I mean, I know.
I'm sorry. This is Eric Rogers.
Okay, how you doing, Mr. Rogers? I don't know why I'm trying to keep clicking through it and seeing who is talking here. All right, got you. Perfect. Okay, Mr. Rogers. Again, the whole is like this one here. It has it. We're gonna look at this one here. The partial is like saying there's some concepts, there's some elements here that I think is good, but it still needs some work. You know, so if you look at the but decline like this thing here, it means nothing. Next one, please. And so I mean, just kind of like being more blunt, if you will. Dr. Dean, is there another question, or your hand was already up?
Let me lower it. I'm sorry.
Okay, great. Let's move forward to vote. Okay, second map. I will start in the opposite direction. I will start first. I'm putting partial. Casing.
Oh.
Okay, I'll come back to you, Ms. Keith, Tari.
I'll wholly accept.
Okay. I'm gonna say Ms. Nisha instead.
I apologize. I voted whole.
Oh, you voted whole? Was that you, Ms. Casey?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Nisha?
Whole.
Okay. Mr. Felder?
Partial.
Okay. Ms. Stamper?
I would like to accept this map as whole as how it's written. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Richmond?
I vote whole.
Ms. Dean,
Whole.
Mr. Acorn,
Partial.
Ms. Bolden,
I'm whole, recognizing what our co-chair said about making tweaks.
Okay. Great. Ms. Ashley,
You should definitely know I'm whole for the whole Ward 7.
okay. Mr. Lee,
What is this map?
the second one, yes. This map here, yes. Oh, he wasn't there last. Okay, sorry about that. Justin. Is Justin still with Justin? No, he wouldn't.
No.
You said, I'm sorry, Joe, I didn't catch that.
Partial.
Partial, got you. Thank you. Ms. Freeze,
Whole.
thank you. Commissioner Blair,
Partial.
Mr. Deskin,
Whole, as I understand it.
thank you. Mr. Rogers,
Whole.
thank you. Mr. Swanson,
Partial as written. I do like the map, but I would like to see Commissioner Hosel's concerns addressed.
okay. And Mr. Campbell,
Partial.
thank you. All right, task force, man, we got one more map. I will start coming down with you, Mr. Campbell. This is the map by Mr. R. Comber, minimal change map. Can you pull it up for us, please, Mr. Justin? Thank you. And I will start in the opposite direction, starting with Mr. Campbell, once we get the map up. All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Campbell, how do you vote?
Partial.
Thank you. Mr. Swanson?
Decline.
Okay. Mr. Rogers?
I'm sorry, can I ask a question? What map are we looking at right now and
This is
voting
the
on?
third map, the last map that we reviewed.
Can we switch the map on the screen then, please?
It should be switched.
Justin, I think he's saying this isn't the minimal change map?
Yeah, I was right.
It was right? Okay. How do you vote, Mr. Who was that speaking? It wasn't Mr. Rogers. Oh, that was Mr. Max.
I think you're on me.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. How would you vote on the third map we looked at?
Decline.
Thank you. Mandela, how would you vote, sir?
Decline.
Thank you. Co-Chair Blair, how do you vote, ma'am?
Partial.
Thank you. Melissa Freeze, how do you vote, please?
Line, please.
I didn't catch it. What'd you say?
Line, please.
Or decline, got you. Thank you. Justin, how do you vote?
Decline.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson still isn't here. All right. Miss Ashley, how do you vote?
It's going to be a decline for me.
Thank you. Ms. Tamika, how are you voting?
Decline.
Mr. Alcorn, how are you voting?
Partial.
Okay. Ms. Mala, Dean, Dr. Dean, how are you voting?
Decline.
Thank you. All right, now it's on you, Mr. Max Freeman. How are you voting, sir? Richmond?
Decline.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Stamper, how are you voting?
Decline.
Thank you. Mr. Felder, how are you voting?
Decline.
Thank you. Ms. Nisha, how are you voting?
Decline.
Thank you. Mr. Keith, how are you voting?
Decline, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Caprice, how are you voting?
Decline.
Thank you. And I'm also voting decline. Thank you, Task Force member. I want to inform the public that our next meeting will be Wednesday at 5 o'clock. We went 17 minutes over about a lot of time. Nonetheless, I think we did a great job. Overall, if nothing else is left out, I hope I didn't miss anything. Great job, everyone. Thank you for your time, your participation. Look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. At this particular moment, we want to conclude our meeting for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Castone. I'm
Thank you.
going to save the chat for everyone. Have that.
Thank you.
All right, everyone have a good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah,